What's going on, Renaissance Lifers? Welcome back to Renaissance Life TV, where we take life to a whole new level. This week, I'm going to share about the power of influence. If you're new to this channel, Renaissance Life TV is a channel for men who want to become more confident, secure, and well-rounded. Each week, I'll share videos on how-to, personal growth and success, entrepreneurship, and a different perspective on navigating life and relationships. Part of Renaissance life is having influence. Many of us want to have influence in our lives, and there's nothing wrong with that. Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different and share with you a personal experience, a story about the power of influence. So a friend of mine called me about a week ago. It's been nearly a year since we've spoken on the phone, but we've texted from time to time just to check up on one another. Now, this is a friend that I met back in college, and we spent hours of time together, sharing with one another, and I remember pouring into this person. I shared everything. Fast forward a few years, and he was a groomsman in my wedding. Now, since that time, we've both grown, gone into our professions, have children, gotten married, and are living our own separate lives. In fact, we live at least 8 hours driving distance from one another. The other day when he called me, it did catch me a little bit by surprise. And what surprised me even more was what he said on the phone call. After all the pleasantries, he said something that really struck me. He said, "Lee, I remember the time years ago when you were talking to me in the car and you said XYZ." And he told me specifically what I said. Now, as you can imagine, it's pretty amazing for somebody to remember something you said nearly 8 years ago verbatim. And it hit me like a rock that I did in fact say that. What was so meaningful in what he told me was the impact of what I said to him. He went on to share several things that I said to him back then that have made an impact on him and that he remembers till this day. I was speechless. How could I think back then that what I was saying would have an impact 8, nearly 10 years later? And the truth of the matter is, in some ways, I didn't know whether it would have an impact, but in some ways, I did believe that what I was saying would have an impact. The reason for that is I was spending intentional time pouring into this person, giving of myself, sharing everything that I knew. And that is a really big part of having an influence and making an impact on people. So many times we want to reach a point where we're influential individuals or we have an impact on a large scale. But I wanted to remind you today that a lot of our influence starts very small. It starts with the people that we see every day, our coworkers, our family, our friends. That is where our influence starts. And it's an everyday thing. When we take the time to pour into other people, our influence grows. The impact that we have grows. We have an impact on people when we share of ourselves with them. Everything that you share is kind of like putting your stamp on other people, on other situations, and you never know what impact that will have or the influence that you will gain with someone years from now. Sometimes it's something that happens very quickly, and sometimes it's something that happens over time. It was a great feeling to know that I impacted someone positively back then, but even greater to know that 8 to 10 years later, that person still remembers the things that I shared with them, the time that I spent with them, and what I poured into them. And what's ironic is over the years, that person has been able to reciprocate the friendship. There's a saying that goes, "Cast your bread on the waters and you will find it after many days." And if you think about the imagery in that metaphor, if you put breadcrumbs in a river upstream, and you go downstream, chances are you will find those breadcrumbs later on downstream. And that relates so well to the power of influence. What you put into people at one point, you will often find that same thing come back to you down the line, whether it's from that person or whether it's from a different scenario or situation. And the most beautiful thing is to have that person come back to you years later and express the impact that what you did had with them. So anyway, I just wanted to share that personal experience for me. All right, and with that, I would love to hear if you have a story of someone who influenced you and how they influenced you, or if you can remember something years later that someone did that had an impact on you. Or maybe you've had the opportunity to impact someone else and they've shared that with you. Please share that in the comments below. Alright, I'll see you next time on Renaissance Life TV.